The last two seasons shows us that the characters Jim Street and DeLuca are trying to create a bond with the community they're living in. So in real life, we know that this is a little bit difficult. For example, the George Floyd's case. And my question is, do you think that by showing that relationship on TV, we can send a message that police officers and people need to have better relationship to avoid cases like Floyd?
Yeah, so thank you for that question, and thank you everyone, especially in Brazil, for watching. We really appreciate our fan base in Brazil is always very passionate, so we're always very appreciative. To answer your question, certainly we've been very fortunate in S.W.A.T, the TV show, over the 4 seasons, to be able to tell stories about ways, ideally, that we can look to achieve better communication between seemingly disparate groups, meaning certain neighborhoods and also police officers, and we've been fortunate over the course of 4 years to look at different types of neighborhoods, whether it's the Chinese community in Los Angeles or the Colombian community or the African American community. In the case of the 2 characters you mentioned, Jim Street and Dominique Luca, played by Alex Russell and Kenny Johnson, we felt that we had an opportunity to tell a different slice of where police officers actually live, where they choose to reside. We had found a staggering statistic historically for the LAPD that there was a culture amongst the LAPD where a large group of officers didn't necessarily live where they worked, meaning that they would work in the city but live far away from the city. And what we found is oftentimes that can be a source of disconnect when you're talking about interacting with the people that you police. You may not always know them by face, by name, know who their families are, know them as human beings, basically, more so than subjects to be policed or to be either saved or to be feared, basically. So there was a program that was instituted a few years ago. There was a real life program which gave police officers a tax break if they were able to find a place to live and choose to live within the city. And we felt like that was a great way to tell a story about police officers not only finding a great real estate deal, but also finding an opportunity to perhaps kind of walk the walk in addition to talking the talk. So if the goal is to increase communication and make that more of a positive experience for the average citizen, then what better way to do that than actually live amongst the people that you work around? So that was a goal, and also to try to get a sense of the city itself, which we consider a character on the show.
Do you have access to SWAT training to create that environment for the show?
Absolutely. SWAT is always SWAT, it was just renewed for season 5. I won't be with them for season 5 moving forward, but I know that they're telling great stories, and season 5 is about to be amazing. But we've always had the fortunate resource of having really great professional police officers who were involved as consultants on the series. So the first 4 years we had an LAPD Metro SWAT officer, in addition to a San Diego former SWAT officer. And then even on the side, writers and collaborators often will do their own research. So I know even before I'd written the pilot, I'd done several ride-alongs. I was the first TV writer to ever do a ride-along with Metro SWAT, so I had to get geared up with the bulletproof vest and the helmet, and I wasn't in the line with them, but I'm like far in the back behind everybody as they're going in. But it allowed me to have some insight on, and all of our writers and collaborators, insight on the real lingo, the terminology, and more of a sense, again, on humanizing, the people behind the badge, to greater have an understanding of what the experience is.
We know that SWAT mixes real life issues like Chris's bisexuality and Hondo's feelings about his sick father. And like the audience can actually relate to the TV show. So can you tell us about the process of creating such emotional episodes, please?
Yes, thank you for that, Lorraine. I think the goal of any storyteller, and by the way, I feel as though every human being is a storyteller in some way, whether you're telling your loved one about your day, or trying to tell a joke, or trying to give directions to the market, you're telling a story. With that in mind, when we bring storytellers together, certainly our writers and writers' room, the best stories often come from personal experience. So the storylines that certainly were exhibited and have been exhibited in SWAT always end up starting from a place of real life experience. So even in the case of Chris's character, played by actress Lena Esco, and it's funny, we covered a wide range of what I would say controversial topics. We covered immigration, Black Lives Matter. We covered, politics within Los Angeles. But the one topic that gained by far the most polarizing response was Chris's bisexuality. There's something about sexuality and sexual identification that seems to become a real red button topic. But bottom line is that we'd had a few people who had experience in coming out as bisexual and had unique relationships. And we had never seen, as far as we know, as far as I know, that storyline portrayed in what you would assume to be a cop show. But we had an opportunity to go into the personal aspect of what is it to be a person, in her case, who had a throuple, basically a relationship with a couple. That was not a threesome, as I always end up correcting my family members. Not a threesome. It was actually a relationship with three people. What does that look like? What are the emotions of that? We were always looking for opportunities to tell stories that we hadn't seen before, especially in a world that you wouldn't expect to see it in. So that was certainly the case there. And then with any other storylines, Hondo and his father, I always felt that was a powerful opportunity to show an African-American man and the nature of his relationship with his father, which I don't see too often on TV. And I've been watching TV my entire life. Just the ins and outs, the complexities, the disagreements they have, how they work through them. The fact that the core idea of the show is that it's supposed to be a cop who saves the world, but not everyone feels the same way about cops. And what happens when those closest to you, including your father, may have a very different opinion of police officers, even though he's the person you probably respect and love the most. It allowed us to have opportunities to kind of have debates, to not just assume that this is good versus evil. It's more gray. What are the opinions that we can provide for the audience and allow the audience to have discussions for themselves, whether it's on parent-child relationships, or whether it's on throuple relationships, or whether it's on other topics. It would always start from conversations we had in the room about our own lives.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was really nice meeting you.
You too.